Good morning, everybody, and happy Easter. To those who celebrate, or Hoppy Easter, should I say. How's everyone doing? So I'm titling this episode as being sponsored by j00licious because she got me this really awesome mug. And then I also got some stuff from her in her D-Stash sale. So today's episode is brought to you by j00licious and the letter A. And also the number 5, which you'll learn why in a little bit. Appropriately enough, and I did not plan this, I'm wearing a shirt with Ernie on it doing his banana phone sketch, which is one of my favorite sketches. Not quite as funny as the banana in the ear to keep the alligators away, but pretty close. Alright, so let's dive right on in. So the first question comes from Alma's Little Wonders. She says she's loving Three Musketeers, and she's been trying to do some digging and wondering if I could help her out. I saw that the next book/pattern for Stitching Book Club is Secret Garden, and she's sorely tempted to get it. But also, there was a vague notion of something about Frankenstein being in the works. Is this true? Yes, Frankenstein is planned for the fall. After Secret Garden. Secret Garden sign-ups start on the 26th, so 2 weeks from today. So it's like an early birthday present to me. I'm excited. So that one is coming. I, so far, have loved, even though I didn't finish Pride and Prejudice yet, I've loved Three Musketeers, both the book and the stitch. So I highly recommend. They're not terribly expensive. I think they're usually $11 or $12 for the full pattern, and she does do a mini pattern as well. So I don't see any reason why not to do both. All right. Let's see. Nancy Call has several questions for me. She says, what is your favorite LNS for patterns? Mine is, by default, it's always going to be Stitch Niche. They're my favorite. However, I do also really love Fire Poppies. But I buy a lot of patterns off of Etsy. So, I know they're not really an LNS, but they might as well be. She also asked, do you know a site to help people with posting on School of Magical Stitches? I would actually just recommend posting in the main group or in your resort, and there someone will definitely be able to help you. Cami Tweedy asks, who is the designer for the Disneyland map? Truth be told, I'm not actually 100% sure there is a designer. It's, I sort of recently learned that it was a official, like, print done for Disneyland back in the early 2000s-ish. So I'm fairly certain that it's not actually been licensed, but I did get it on Etsy. So that's about all I can really say. I don't really feel too comfortable directing y'all towards the actual page, since I'm pretty sure that the person who did it is not receiving any money off of it, but it is out there if you're looking for it. Grace Blair asks, who is the designer of the Fairy Tale Project? And I'm guessing you mean the princesses. That's Shannon Christine. It was in, it was the Stitch Along from last year through Cross Stitcher magazine. I'm guessing probably sometime here in the next couple of months she'll be releasing it herself on her website as just one individual pattern. Alicia Bell asks, what is Mania? Stitch Mania it's initially started as an event that we created a Facebook group for that became a massive group. It's on Facebook. An original intent behind it was to start a new start every day for the first 15 days in May. So, a lot, but then at the time, there was another group who would do like weekend stitch-alongs with themes, but they were very, very, very particular about the rules, and we decided we didn't want to be. So really, it's whatever you define as mania. So there's a lot of different ways of doing it. When I do it traditionally, it's 5 starts, 1 every 3 days. Because 15 is just too much. And a lot of times then it becomes more about starting things to start them than because I actually want to start them. Once Upon a Stitch asks, why didn't I enjoy the Things Unseen sampler? She says April 7th is her anniversary, the 8th is her birthday, so she was planning to do a special start. So here she is stitching it, and hears me say it was the worst pattern. It has absolutely nothing to do with the design itself. The first problem was, for me with it, was right when I was really still a fairly new stitcher. And I hadn't discovered how much I dislike borders yet. And that thing has a massive border. So that was its first thing against it. I did it on Aida. It's Picture This Plus Aida was the called for. And at that point, I was still going between doing linen and Aida fairly regularly before I just quit altogether, and now I'm back to doing back and forth. But Picture This Plus is very, very soft Aida. It's a very loose Aida, and I kept finding that I was piercing the blocks when I didn't want to. So I was struggling with the fabric, I was struggling with the border, and then at some point in that first part, I managed to get myself off somewhere. So everything on the inside was basically off by a square, and I could never figure out how, where, or why, and I had enough of it. I was done. So that was why it was probably the piece I struggled with the most. But it had nothing to do with the pattern itself, and I think it's beautiful. My mother absolutely loves it, but it was not the easiest thing I've ever stitched. The Caffeinated Stitcher asks, backstitch for me is a nightmare. Any advice or tips? Unless it's only like a little bit of backstitch, I will backstitch as I go. And the best advice I have is, especially if there are certain pieces like, say, do I have one handy? Okay, so, for instance, in Three Musketeers, the only backstitch we've had to do has been in the fleur-de-lis to sort of smooth that out line-wise and define the fleur-de-lis. So it's long stitches. For something small like that, I might wait until the end. For something where it's like antennas, you know, that's small and easy. But on the bigger pieces, your more elaborate pieces, like a soda stitch or something like that, there I'm more inclined to follow the idea of the image than the actual, oh, I have to count over 2 squares, so that I can keep it looking as smooth as possible. And that's really the only advice I have. I tend to backstitch as I go, especially on backstitch heavy pieces. I did not do it. The backstitch on City Mouse and Country Mouse was deceptive. That looked like it was going to be fairly easy backstitch, and it was not. So, those are my advice. Do it as you go. If it's just straight lines, and you're just doing it to make like a flower stem or an antenna, you're good to go. I would just do it at the end. But if it's overly elaborate, like in Soda Stitch, I do it as I go, and I sort of follow the intent more than the letter. Philip Hoskins asks, when you don't have a specific use for a fabric, but you want to shop for some to build stash, how do you determine what size cuts and counts to get? I pretty much stick to my wheelhouse of 28, 32, 14, 16. Or 18 sometimes for Ada. What I sort of determine is more, because I do a lot of like buying from like Fortnite Fabrics and their auctions. So a lot of times it's just, ooh, I like that color. I generally err on the side of a fat quarter to a fat eighth. Which then gets me in trouble, because then if I want a piece but I don't need the entire piece of the fabric, then I think, oh god, why am I doing this? I don't need this much. Do I really want to cut this fabric down? And I need to just get better about getting over myself. So that's how I do it. That's kind of how I do it. A lot of times it's based off color. Yeah. Jenny Manian, yes, I am always cold. We keep our apartment fairly cold. Largely because we both like being under blankets and wearing hoodies. Alright, Cindy Cartwright asks a good question after this cup of coffee. Or sip of coffee. Alright, she says, what is your unicorn pattern? A pattern that you love but do not have or cannot find. I think right now my sort of unicorn, I mean, there's always Witch's Hollow from Primitive Hair. I think it's Primitive Hair. And another one from hers is Blacked Skies. I like both of those a lot. That's probably it at the moment. Yeah, we'll go with those two. Bev Taplin asks a couple of things. First, where do you get your needle minders from? All over the place. Some of them I've got some from Mad for Minders, I've got some from No Name Needle Minders, I've got some from just about kind of everywhere. Some are from the Frosted Pumpkin. It's really kind of what catches my eye. I don't have like a go-to shop. And right now I'm really trying not to buy needle minders because I've got far too many. She also says, you mentioned your floss storage. Would you mind telling us more? Sure. My bobbinated floss just goes into good old floss boxes. And then I have a storage cabinet with pull-out drawers that I keep my specialty threads, like the Gentle Arts, in. So I put them in snack baggies with a note card with their color name on it. And then those go in there and they're filed alphabetically. Well, they're filed... First, I file them by company and then by color name. So, and that's how I do it. Sheila Miller, that is a great idea to put, if you have a travel buddy, like in my case Stuffy, to put your phone number on them. I am overly cautious about it because I am a nervous traveler, so I tend to sit with them in my lap when I'm on the plane. So they generally get tucked under my arm or in my actual, like, carry-on. Because I'm enough of a nervous traveler. But that is a great idea. Let's see. Hildy Johnson asks, do you match your patterns with your bags? Not always. It just so happened that I really wanted that Alice one to go with my Alice one. That was redundant. My Alice pattern to go with my Alice bag. But not... since I've only got 3, really, project bags, I don't really have a fair comparison to say, do I match or no? Yeah. All right. So, that brings us to the end of the Q&A. So now we're going to go over some haul. Then we're going to start the whip updates and finishes. We'll do homework, and then you'll see my mania plans. Okay, so j00licious did some destashing, and I bought a couple of things from her. So those came this week as well. She also included, and I absolutely love this, she included one of the It's You I Like smalls that she finished. And I absolutely love it, and I was going to put it on display, but I wanted y'all to see it first. So it's actually getting to sit up here next to Phyllis. Boop. But that's where it's going to live. At least in this apartment for the time being. So thank you, Julia. Which is, again, why I'm saying this episode is sponsored by her. So from her D-stash, I got the Seaside Summer Alphabet from Little House Needleworks. It includes the floss and the buttons. So I got that from her. I got the Sanctuary from the Drawn Thread, which you're going to see this again. Because I thought it was really pretty small, and then I actually got to look at it up close, and it's really, really pretty. So, and it's got a bunch, it's got specialty stitches. I think it actually even has some hardanger, which terrifies the poop out of me, but although I don't actually see where that is in this, but I think there is. There's some Jessica stitches, which I'm not looking forward to. Some rapid stitch, some rice stitch, some spiderweb stitch. So it's got all sorts of very interesting things in it that I'm looking forward to. And it was charted for NPI Silks, but I will not be doing it in NPI Silks. Okay. Then I got this two lovely pieces of fabric. One is, they're both 32 count linen from Picture This Plus. One is Baroque. And the other is a fat quarter of ale. So, all right. So that was my haul for the week. Jeez. Okay, so let's talk homework. So we had to work on, last week we did that picture post of the 5 whips. Because the Beast turns 21, and that's a big focal point in his book, we were supposed to work on the project we'd numbered 2 and the project we'd numbered 1. So my number 2, and we had to do them in that order. So my number 2 project was Beauty and the Beast. So I got a little over 500 in on it, and that's where I got. So I got the roses started, and I got the big rose almost finished. So the next time I work on it, I'll finish out definitely the big rose, and then hopefully the leaves around it, and go from there. So, and this is on fabric from Fortnite Fabrics, and the pattern came from Fables and Fairy Tales to Cross Stitch. Alright. And then, my number 1 was Nevermore. So I did 500 stitches on it, and then was basically like, you know what, I could probably finish this tomorrow. Because I finished, so Wednesday I worked on it, and then Thursday I worked on it. And Thursday night I got my 500 in, and I went, I could probably finish this tomorrow. I did. So here is Nevermore by Prairie Schooler, color conversion by moi. I stayed up till 2:30 in the morning, almost, on Friday to finish it. And then was a zombie yesterday, so I did no stitching yesterday. But here it is, in all its glory. So, I thoroughly enjoyed stitching it. Almost a year to the day after starting it is when I finished it. Because I started it at the tail end of March last year for Magical Stitches. Because I think I used it for the Shrieking Shack prompt for Prisoner of Azkaban. So yeah. Alright, so next up I'll show you what I'm going to work on today, and then we'll go into the homework for next week. So, there is a new pattern, or a new stitch along, because, you know, not that I don't already have enough started as is. Let's see, and I want to get the designer's name correct. It's from Sleeping Luna Designs on Etsy, and it's the Lunar Princess stitch along, and it's Sailor Moon themed. So part 1 came out on Friday, and unfortunately she didn't do, there's no cover photos, so I'll hold it up to the back so you can sort of see. So there's the first part, it's Mars. I'm going to be doing it on this nice blue sparkly fabric. So a dark fabric, which I normally don't do things on, but I have discovered with the current setup I have for my cross-stitching that actually dark fabrics are fairly easy to work on. So at least while I'm in this apartment and I've got good lighting to do it with, got the right kind of lighting to do it with, we're going to do it. So I will be starting that after I do my daily reading of Three Musketeers. And the needle minder I'm going to be using is this one. It's Sailor Moon. She is the one named Sailor Moon. And I know I as much as I really do love the new dub, because I do like Sailor Moon, as much as I really like the new dub, and I appreciate that they've gone back to how it was supposed to be, in terms of a lot of the characters, I lost my train of thought. I will always have a soft spot in my heart for the original dub, especially the lyrics to its theme song. You know, because she was fighting evil by moonlight and winning love by daylight. Alright, this week's homework. And this is why this and then the next part are why I say today's episode is brought to you by the number 5. Because there's 5 tasks and 5 mania plans. And a birthday start is in there too, but I don't know which one's going to be the birthday start and which ones aren't going to be. We'll figure that out. But 5. Number 5. And the letter A is just my favorite letter. I also really like W, and I also really like Z. And when I was a kid and I would have ABCs and 1, 2, 3s for lunch, I would always eat around and leave the A's, W's, and Z's for the end, and eat them last. I was a strange child. So the first one up is going to be, I'm actually not going to be able to stitch these in order because I can't work on my choice for number 1 until Wednesday when the pattern drops. So the first choice is, assignment is stitch on a whip that you were coerced to start or you coerced someone to start. So I will be starting Chinese Zodiac from the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery because they coerced me into doing it with their cute design. And it's going to be on 18 count Alba White Truffle from Fortnite Fabrics. So here it is. And I'm using their little needle minder that they designed for this. So I've got it all ready to go. They showed a sneak peek with the newly revised dragon, and it's absolutely adorable, and that gave me enough information to figure out my fabric choice. So, alright, so that's going to be one of the starts, or one of the projects. The next one is work on a whip that you need to be disciplined to work on and explain why. There were a couple of similar topics this week. So I'm going to work on Strawberry Fields Forever. And I find that I have to be kind of disciplined on this one because it's very easy for me to brush it aside or find something else to work on. So I'm going to work on that. These are all supposed to be 200 stitches. So I don't, as of right now, I'm not planning to fill the house in specifically. Even though that would probably do the 200, but I am going to work on filling in the house. So here's where that is. All right. The next one is to stitch on a whip that contains a book or is based on a book. So I'm going to be working on Three Musketeers. So, because the next part actually comes out next week, so I really need to get the part 3 done. Which probably means I'll be working on this one on Saturday. Even though I won't get part 4 started, part 4 will be finished sometime before the end of the thing, but there we go. Next is to stitch on a whip you were crazy to start, but you still love. So in this case, I chose Every Season. Here it is. So, and I chose that because it's got an elaborate border, which is normally not my thing, and lots of borders with that. It's got full coverage, which is also not normally my thing, but I really, really love this. So, here's where I'm at on it. Yay! All right. And then finally, stitch on a whip which you are called to work on even though it's a struggle. And this was so I'm going with the needle, and it's another one, I absolutely love it, but I tend to avoid it some. So 200 stitches. I'm hoping that will finish out the house. Because I wanted to work on this one 3 times. So I'm hoping this will finish out the house and the cloud. And then maybe the next time I work on it, we'll finish out the block. Alright. So that is the homework. And now we discuss the Mania plan / birthday start. Because my birthday's the 28th. And then Mania starts on the 1st. So I'm going to show you what I've got picked. And like I said, I don't know which one's going to be the birthday start. So the first one up is, and this is in no particular order on when I'm starting them. So the Sanctuary. I told you you'd see that one again. I'm going to be stitching it on this one. It's called, it's 28 count from Witchell. It's called Gray Mist. It was an 18 by 21 cut, and I needed 12 by 16. So this will give me plenty of space. And the needle minder I chose for it is one of my Carol Channing ones. And it's Carol Channing. I think this is from Thoroughly Modern Millie, but it might also just be a general appearance of her as Lorelei Lee. Let's do this. There we go, that gives you a little less glare. Then we're going to do How Does Your Garden Grow from Prairie Moon. And this one calls for a ton of Gentle Arts and Weeks Dye Works, but in very small sections. So what I've decided to do is on the colors I didn't have, I'm just going to substitute. But I'm going to use Sea Serpent from Ship's Manor. And the needle minder I'm using is actually this really cute scarecrow. He actually was just a magnet from a Japanese edition of Wizard of Oz that came with the Dorothy, Scarecrow, and Tin Man as magnets, so I'm going to use him. Alright. Then, and I think this one will be my, I think this one will probably be my birthday start. But I could be completely wrong. Oh, crap. Hang on. Boop. Okay, it's Adventure Awaits from Caterpillar Cross Stitch. So it's a really cool world map. I will be stitching it on Mummy Wraps from Ship's Manor, because I thought it gave it sort of that old map look. And I will be using my Titanic poster. Alright, then we're going to start Night Walked Down from the Blue Flower. Everyone, I think, has kind of seen this one. I've had it kitted up for a while. And I'll be doing it on Demeter's Harvest from Die Stitch Love. I put that needle minder in a very awkward place. Look at me go. Hang on, y'all. Okay. And Demeter's Harvest, you may remember I did a Hocus Pocus piece on. And I'm going to be using this really cool sort of vintagey Halloween that's got a witch and a moon. Alright, then we got two more. Is Christmas Village. The Mill Hill Buttons and Beads. I'm doing it on this really pretty blue sparkly fabric. And we're going to start, originally I was going to start with here's my needle minder, it's a Santa hat. Ta-da! Originally, I was going to center the Palace Theater in the middle, but it's apparently really hard to come by right now. So I will probably be putting, so I think I'm going to revise that, and I'm going to put the bookstore in the middle. So, or I may put the church in the middle. I don't know yet. It'll be one of the two, though. I know churches a lot of times are, like, middle of towns, so. And then, finally, Seize the Day from Hands On Design. So there's the pattern. I'll be using this super cute octopus, because octopus are awesome. And then I've got this piece of fabric for it. So it's a small. I don't actually know what color it is. It was just random that I had in my stash. It may actually even be 36 count. I'm not entirely sure. Like I said, I don't know where it came from, and it's not labeled, so I don't know quite what it is. But I have it, and that's what matters. All right, so those are the Mania starts. So there we go. That's kind of it for me today. So I'm going to upload this. I'm going to go watch my, or read my 4 chapters of Three Musketeers. Then I'm going to start me some Sailor Moon. So anyhow, I hope everyone has a great day, and I will see you all next time.